Hey, this is Leo for Actualized.org. And in this video, we're doing the Enlightenment FAQ Part 2. This is one part in a multiple part series where I am answering the most common questions that people have about spiritual enlightenment. So this is part 2 of the series. Go ahead and watch part 1 of my Enlightenment FAQ. Those will be some of the preliminary questions, and this continues from that part, and we're going to answer a lot of pretty basic and fundamental questions that are going to help you to get your mind wrapped around what spiritual alignment actually is and disabuse you of some of the myths and caricatures and bad assumptions and fears that you might have about pursuing this for real in your own life. So let's go ahead and get started. One really important question is, what are the benefits of enlightenment? And it's not quite obvious at first blush what the benefits are, because if you're going to pursue enlightenment, you're going to invest a lot of time and energy into it. It seems like you would want to do it because there's some gain for you, right? What's the value to you? Well, actually, in my first enlightenment video, the spiritual enlightenment introduction video, spiritual enlightenment intro, that's what it's called. There I talk about many of the benefits. So I have a whole list of them there. Let me just briefly summarize what the benefits are. The real benefits of enlightenment are that you break free of your mental prison, that you stop being a slave to your thoughts and to your emotions, and that you really get a really deep, meaningful tranquility in your life, which is something you've been searching for your whole life without really realizing it. And here, you're going to actually be able to experience this tranquility regardless of external circumstances. So how cool would it be for you to stay calm and even-keeled no matter what was happening in your life? Whether good stuff was happening to you or bad stuff, whether you lost your job or whether you lost a family member, or whether something didn't go the way that you wanted it to go, or whether you weren't making the money you wanted to make, or whether you didn't get accepted into college, or whether you didn't get that dream career you wanted, or whatever. How cool would it be if you could keep your cool and stay tranquil and calm throughout that without getting all crazy agitated the way you do now, without having these fits of drama, without having these relationship problems, without having these career problems, without engaging in all this neurotic thinking and monkey chatter, without getting swept up by your emotions, without having fits of rage, without being frustrated and annoyed all the time, without being lonely and sad, without getting depressed. How cool would that be? Well, that's the primary reason I think that most people pursue enlightenment. One of the other benefits is that you get a deeper understanding of reality and truth. So if for you truth is a value and you really like understanding what the hell is going on here in this universe, well, understanding how your consciousness works is like the key that unlocks it all. So it's another really amazing benefit. Now, it's important to understand here that it's not like you're going to be ecstatically happy now all the time in your life. And it's not the case that if you're enlightened that you never have a moment of sadness or a moment of loneliness or an emotion of frustration or anger or annoyance. You can have these emotions, but your relationship to these emotions changes completely, so that these emotions no longer become a source of suffering, but they just become another experience, not really any worse or any better than any other experience. And so you can live your life really, truly free without any kind of obligations. Another really cool benefit which I talked about in my other video, is that you get relief from your self-image problems. And self-image problems are things like shyness, lack of confidence, low self-esteem, worrying about how you look, worrying about what people think of you, trying to impress people, trying to live up to certain people's expectations, right? That's a huge category of problems in almost every person's life. So how cool would it be to just wipe all that away, to make it completely irrelevant? Well, you can do that by getting rid of the self. Next question. So Leo, does this mean that I'll have complete control of my emotions once I'm enlightened? This is a very interesting question. Because again, let's go back to the truth here that we're talking about, which is the truth of no self. There is no self. There is no you. So who is going to have complete control over his or her emotions? Nobody. So if you think this is going to give you control of your emotions, then I got some bad news. You have zero control over your emotions because you do not exist. Paradoxically and counterintuitively, once you surrender yourself to this fact, what happens is that you get complete peace and calm with your emotions. And so what you get is you get kind of a pseudo control. You get the appearance of control. It's as though you have total control, but in fact you have zero control. Very paradoxical, but also very cool and fascinating. How can this be? Well, the biggest problem and the biggest reason that you need control over your emotions, the reason that you want control over your emotions, is because right now you're a slave to your emotions. So once you free yourself and you realize that there is no you who's actually experiencing emotions, and there is no you to control emotions, what happens is that you just become calm and cool with whatever emotion is happening. It's not the case that with enlightenment you become emotionless. You will have emotions. There will be plenty of emotions in your life. But your relationship to these emotions will change completely. And so people looking at you from the outside will think that you have complete control over your emotions. Or if not complete, then, a lot more than the average person. But in reality, what's going to be happening on the inside is that you're going to realize that there is no me who's experiencing emotions. And so therefore, everything's cool. No need to get my panties in a twist the way that other people do. The reason that other people suffer from emotions so much is because they believe that there's a them inside who's being threatened by the external world. Once that notion is removed, then life flows very, very smoothly. Next question. But Leo, what if I'm already happy in my life? So you're telling me that I should pursue enlightenment because it's going to give me this peace and tranquility and happiness that I can't get otherwise, but I'm already happy. I have a good life. I have a good family. I got a good relationship. I got a good career. I've worked real hard on these things. I've put them all together. I'm happy with my health and my fitness and all this stuff. Well, another bitter pill for you is that actually you're not happy. What you're doing is you're lying to yourself and you're saying that you're happy, but in fact you're not. Why is this happening and how could this be the case? Well, the first thing you got to realize is that even if you're happy right now in the moment, maybe your career and your relationship and everything else in your life just has come together right now. And in this moment, and maybe for the next couple of months, things are going to be going great. And you'll be happy. But see, your happiness is contingent upon external circumstance. So if we remove your relationship, if we give you a divorce, and if we have you go to the doctor's office and get some bad health news, and if we have you lose your job, and if we have you lose some money in the stock market, right? And if we have you break your leg or whatever, all of a sudden you're not going to be happy. You're going to be very, very miserable. And so your happiness is extremely contingent. So you got to be very careful here about saying that you're happy, because actually, whenever someone says this, they're lying to themselves. How can I know this? I can know this for a fact because it's not possible to actually be truly happy without being enlightened. So unless you're enlightened, you can't be happy. It's not possible. It's just psychologically impossible. Why? Because there's a falsehood that you're living. You're telling yourself that you exist when in fact you don't. So happiness is not possible under this paradigm. It's just not. And that's actually reflected in your whole history of existence. For your entire life, from the point where you were born to the point where you're going to die, or from today to the point where you are living now, you've never been able to have consistent true happiness. What you've had is you had this roller coaster ride, right? For this very reason is because external circumstances change all the time. So when someone tells me that they're happy, what that is in my mind is like, imagine that someone has tripped and fallen off a cliff and he's falling to the ground, to the jagged rocks down below. And it's like a 5,000-foot drop. And as he's falling, he looks at me and he says, "Look, Leo, I'm happy. Look, flying, it's fun. It's fun to be flying through the air. I'm so happy right now." Well, yes, you're happy right now if we take one snapshot. But how happy are you going to be 5 minutes later? You're not going to be very happy. So that's basically your current condition in life, right? Now, what you might do to yourself is you might trick yourself and you might say to yourself, well, Leo, why don't I just keep putting more and more good things in place in my life until everything is perfectly in place? Why don't I go just earn lots of money and then basically everything will be figured out? If I earn $100 million, then it's like no one can touch me. But see, that's a delusion. Even in that situation, you're still not going to be happy. Because even if you have $100 million and you can become quote unquote untouchable by society, you have all this power and you're able to do whatever you want, in the end, you're still going to have to face disease and loneliness. And in the end, everyone dies. You're going to have to face death. So in the end, your life is going to end in misery, no matter how happy you think that you are right now. So really, you're not happy. And even if you think that you're happy right now in the moment, like your life right now is all put together, I got news for you. Even there, you're lying to yourself. Because even if you say that you have a great relationship and a great career and great health, that's not actually what's happening in your life. On a minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour basis, what's happening, even if you have all that stuff in place, is that your mind is driving you nuts. You're literally insane in your mind. You're having insane thoughts. You're sabotaging yourself. You're getting angry at people inside. You're getting jealous. You're having fear. Even if you have everything put together, even if you have $100 million, you still have the fear of losing the $100 million. You have the fear of losing your beautiful relationship or losing your kids or losing your health or losing your life or whatever else. So it's not possible for you to be happy because you actually believe that if you lose these things, you will be unhappy. And so therefore, it's not possible to be happy with that kind of paradigm in place. So you have to get very aware of how the mind tricks you into a false sense of happiness. So one of the ways that we do enlightenment work is we first start to realize that, oh, wait a minute. I'm lying to myself all the time about how well this paradigm, this egoic paradigm, is working for me. The ego keeps telling me that it's working well and that I should continue using this paradigm. But if I look really carefully, I can actually see that this paradigm is rotten. It's not working, if I'm very honest. Next question. Should I stop pursuing my goals in career, in my relationships, with my health, with my hobbies? Should I stop those things? And this depends. It depends on why you're pursuing these things. So just because you are pursuing enlightenment or you become enlightened does not mean that you no longer have any relationships, or that your health now doesn't matter, or that you don't need to have any hobbies, or that you don't need to go to work and have a decent career. It doesn't mean these things. Again, enlightenment is an inner knowing and a realization. It's not any lifestyle per se, and it's not any particular external situation. So if you really authentically want a relationship, be in a relationship. And if you authentically want good health, go get good health. And if you, want to live in a house and be able to pay your electricity bill, then you should probably have a job. And if you enjoy some particular hobby, like you like playing basketball on the weekend, or you like sailing or surfing or whatever, those are probably fine hobbies. The problem here, though, is that a lot of people have goals in their career, in their relationships, in their health, and in their hobbies that are egoic goals. What this means is that you're pursuing this goal because you think that this goal will make you truly happy. And so you're kind of like an addict. You're a career addict, you're a relationship addict, you're a health and fitness junkie, you're an addict with your hobbies, and you think that that's going to be your salvation. So if you're pursuing goals for those reasons, then those are the wrong reasons, and those you should probably stop. Why? Because they're not going to really make you happy, for one, and two, because they're an opportunity cost. They're taking away time from your ability to find what will truly make you happy, which is doing the inner mental development. So everyone's going to have to judge for themselves, which goals are authentic and which are not authentic. And this is a very tricky process. You don't really know which goals in your life are authentic and which ones aren't. You might tell yourself that going to the gym is an authentic goal of yours, but you might discover that actually, upon lots of deep reflection, the only reason I'm going to the gym is because I want my girlfriend to think that I'm hot. And that's because I have this need for upholding my self-image, that I'm this hot, ripped dude. And that authentically, if I wasn't trying to uphold this self-image of being this hot, ripped dude, then I probably don't need to go to the gym so much. Right? That might be just one example there. Next question. Leo, isn't enlightenment dangerous? The stuff you're telling us here, isn't it dangerous? Couldn't it be kind of eroding the foundations of a happy, healthy, normal life? Well, the only danger really is the current egoic paradigm that you're living under. All the evils in the world, where do you think they come from? They don't come from enlightened people. They come from selfish people. They come from the egoic paradigm, your paradigm. And if you think that somehow you're above the egoic paradigm, but you're still living the egoic paradigm, you're kidding yourself. So if you think that you're not capable of crime and theft and rape and murder and genocide and bigotry and racism and getting angry at people and violence of different sorts and whatever else, all the things that you think are evil in life. If you think that you're not capable of that, well, newsflash, the only reason you think that is because right now you're sitting in a cushy position in life where you're not being threatened. As soon as your ego is threatened sufficiently, you will resort to all those evils. All those evils you think that you wouldn't do, well, you would do them under the right circumstances. Why? Because fundamentally you believe that you exist and that you need to be protected and defended. So how do we overcome this? By removing the notion that you exist and that you need to be defended. In fact, there is nothing that needs defending. This can be difficult to appreciate, right? And it can seem dangerous and threatening to be talking about this because what we're doing is we're kind of destroying a lot of your worldviews and a lot of traditional cultural assumptions. And we're destroying a lot of beliefs in this inquiry. It can seem like we're doing a negative process here by destroying stuff, as though this destruction of mental concepts in your mind is somehow, eroding the moral fabric of your being. And it's going to lead to some sort of nihilism or something like that. Or it's going to make you antisocial, or it's going to turn you into a serial murderer or someone who's insane. In fact, no. All of those bad things, that's ego paradigm run amok. That's who you presently are, but you're just kind of masking it. The Enlightenment paradigm, this frees you up from all that. This makes you the least dangerous to yourself and to everyone around you, to society. Because when you have nothing to defend and protect, you have no need to go out and hurt people, and you have no need to commit suicide or to do any of the other kind of stuff that you would consider, dangerous. People who are insane or like serial killers, stuff like that, these people have monkey chatter in their mind all the time. This is the exact opposite of enlightenment. Enlightenment is the silencing of the monkey chatter. When the monkey chatter is silenced, when you're perfectly calm and present and happy in the moment, who are you going to bother? There's no one to bother. What's the danger? There is no more danger. Everything's perfectly fine. You can easily discover this in meditation. When you're meditating and you're very focused, you can see that this is just a totally peaceful, very innocuous, innocent state. It's not a dangerous state. It's an innocent state. What's telling you that it's dangerous is the ego. Why? Because this is how the ego defends itself. This is a defense mechanism. So watch out for that trap. Next question. Leo, isn't enlightenment only for radical people? A certain very small segment of the population? And the answer is no. Enlightenment is perhaps one of the most universal things that I've discovered that people ought to pursue. Right? I can't come up here and say, you must go get married, or you must go get a job that will earn you 6 figures, or you must go learn how to scuba dive, right? Because those are all, particular things that some people might like and some people might not like. But actually, I feel very comfortable coming up here and saying, you, no matter who you are, no matter what culture you live in, no matter what your religion, no matter what your scientific background, no matter if you're old or if you're young, no matter how much money you make, no matter what your family situation is, you should become enlightened. Now, why? Because this is one of the most fundamental truths of your existence, is understanding your true nature. What is your true nature? Your true nature is not what you've been told by society. Your true nature is not this entity that you think that you are, this body or this mind. Your true nature is actually nothingness. That's your true nature. But you need to go discover this. And everyone can discover it. Anyone with, normal mental health can discover this. With a normal brain can discover this. And everyone should discover this, because if everyone discovered this, society would be completely transformed. This would be the biggest shift that human civilization has experienced in all of its history. This would be more important than the invention of the atomic bomb or electricity or the computer or the internet or anything else that we've invented. This would be more powerful, because this would change your orientation and the whole world's orientation towards life. This would give you the happiness and the peace that you really, really want. So this is not for radical people. If you want to live to your full potential, and if you want to be happy and peaceful, and if you want to know the truth of your being on a profound level, then this is for you. This is not just for monks. This is not just for some crazy hardcore self-help junkies like you might think I am. This is a very desirable thing, because one thing that you can find universally across all cultures, all peoples, is that they have monkey chatter in their mind, and they drive themselves crazy with it, and they have emotional, neurotic problems. And because of this, they can't be happy. And everyone basically wants to be happy. The only reason you do anything in your life, and the only reason anyone else does anything in their lives, is because they believe it will make them happy. Of course, the problem is that most of the stuff you do and most of the stuff other people do are not going to make them happy, but they don't realize it yet, and they don't really want to admit this fact. So because kind of happiness is the objective of life, this is for everyone. Next question. Leo, when I become a tree-hugging hippie slacker, if I start going down this path of spirituality and enlightenment? Well, I'm sensitive to that myself. I don't really identify with hippie new age thinking. In fact, I don't like that subculture. I don't really see myself as a hippie or tree hugger or whatever. And I don't consider myself a slacker. I'm like a productive person. I actually want to go and achieve stuff in my life. But this is a stereotype, right? This is a stereotype. And in fact, hippie tree huggers are not enlightened. Slackers are not enlightened. If you actually go and meet a real enlightened person, you'll see that they're not a tree-hugging hippie slacker. These people are productive when they want to be. These people are not just coming up with some new age theories and singing Kumbaya and going to some retreat in the woods or going out hugging trees or saving the whales. That's not what enlightened people generally do. So this subculture, even though it seems like it's all spiritual, actually it's kind of like a false spirituality, which is actually one of the things that I don't like about hippies, is that I feel like they're incongruent. They live their life incongruently. So, if a hippie was really living congruently, they would become enlightened. And then what would counterintuitively happen is that they would drop a lot of their hippie ways. Because hippies are kind of reacting against a certain element of society. And so what this does is this creates another element. And this creates a philosophy and a mindset and belief systems and a worldview. What we're talking about with enlightenment is wiping that whole thing clean, wiping that slate off clean, so that you don't have any of those, cultural reactions, and you don't have these beliefs and worldviews. It's just calm, peaceful, neutral. So don't worry about becoming a hippie slacker. Next question. Leo, but I enjoy stuff like sex and alcohol and drugs and food, and I enjoy going to work. I don't want to give this up. In fact, I refuse to give this stuff up. If the cost of becoming enlightened is to give all this stuff up, then I don't want to become enlightened. It doesn't make sense. It's not worth it. The answer to this objection is that none of these things in and of themselves is wrong or bad or evil or even anti-spiritual or in any way incompatible with enlightenment. Again, enlightenment is not a particular lifestyle. It's an understanding, a realization. So after enlightenment, you can still have sex. In fact, your sex will become amazing if you choose to have it. You can still consume alcohol, and in fact, you could appreciate alcohol more. You could consume drugs, and you will appreciate drugs more, and you're less likely to get addicted to them. You can eat great food, and you will appreciate that food more than you've ever had. Why? Because you're able to stay focused and in the moment, and you're able to get rid of the monkey chatter. You can go to work and perform amazingly at work. Again, why? Because you no longer worry and doubt and have fear and need to protect your ego and need to look after your self-image and need to think about money and all this kind of stuff. You can just focus on doing great work. And you could be more creative too in your work. So none of these things need to be given up. Now, maybe you will give some of this stuff up. Right now, if you're a drug addict, probably you'll give that up if you become enlightened. If you're a glutton and you use food as a crutch and as a source of excitement and stimulation in your life, well, maybe you'll stop doing that after you become enlightened. If right now you're a workaholic, and the reason you're a workaholic is because you feel like your life is pointless, if you're not a workaholic, well, maybe you'll stop being a workaholic. And right now, if you're addicted to sex and you want sex all the time or love in a relationship because you feel like that completes you and you're basically, again, addicted to it, well, maybe you'll give that up too. What enlightenment basically does is it unhooks you from needing these things. So if you engage in these things in the future, you're going to do it consciously, deliberately, because you actually want it. And you're going to be able to appreciate it much more than you've ever had an ability to in the past. So you don't really need to give these things up. And in fact, sex will continue. I don't really recommend that you do alcohol and drugs. Those aren't really healthy, but you're still going to eat and you can go and eat good food. I think you should still work and make a living in life because, you need money and resources to live in life. So those things will still stay in place most likely in your life. The next question is, but Leah, what about specifically sex, alcohol, and drugs? Aren't these things bad? Aren't these things evil? And what about, for example, making money? Isn't that bad too? So if I become spiritual and enlightened, will I no longer be able to engage in these activities? Well, the first question is, why are you so attached to engaging in these activities? Right? It's for egoic reasons. And even if you think these things are evil, you still probably have a hidden urge to do it. And you have to really hold yourself back, and maybe you guilt yourself for having some sex or for doing some drugs when you shouldn't have, or having a drink when you shouldn't have, or swindling someone out of some money when you shouldn't have. The fact is that none of these things, again, are bad in and of themselves. There's nothing wrong with sex. There's nothing evil about sex. There's nothing even wrong with drugs per se. There's nothing wrong with alcohol, and there's nothing wrong with making money. And in fact, I'm going to make a really blanket statement, which is kind of outrageous. There's nothing wrong with any action that you choose to do at all. There's nothing wrong with any action. The question is, why are you doing it? What's the motivation behind it? It's always about the motivation. When you get the motivation right, when you remove the ego and you act selflessly, without addiction or clinginess, then you can engage in these things and they will be of value in your life, and they won't have all the negative repercussions that these things generally have. You can use drugs and alcohol in moderation, and it'll be fine. You can have amazing enlightened sex. You can still make lots of money after being enlightened if you feel like that's something that's worth doing. So don't worry about losing that stuff. Don't cling to it. Next question. I've had an enlightenment experience using drugs or meditation. People use mushrooms or DMT, or there's a bunch of other different types of hallucinogenic type drugs that can induce enlightenment-like experiences. And then also people go out and meditate at retreats and stuff like that and do guided meditations and claim to have enlightenment experiences. So the question is, Leo, isn't that it? Isn't that what you're talking about? This is the truth of no self, right? Well, enlightenment is kind of tricky because what happens when you get on this journey is that you start to have think of it like the clouds on a very cloudy day, and the sun beams aren't breaking through the clouds, but then all of a sudden the clouds just kind of open up and there's a little beam of light going right through the clouds. That's kind of like a little moment of enlightenment. But then quickly the clouds come back and close up, and then the light beam goes away. So one of the frustrating things on this journey is that you're going to have like mini, brief, tiny, fleeting moments of no self. Maybe for 5 seconds here, for 1 second there, for a whole hour here, maybe for a whole day. But they're all going to escape you. You're not going to be able to hold on to it. What this is it's like an expansion of consciousness. Your consciousness kind of dilates like a lens on a camera, right? It kind of zooms in and out. Well, when the lens dilates up, you get this expansion, but then it closes back down and falls into its default state. So What I'm really interested here is not in a temporary expansion of your consciousness. I mean, that's cool, and if you can get that, that's great. But I'm more interested in a permanent removing of the clouds. What I really mean when I say enlightenment is the clouds are completely gone and you've just got light shining all the time and you're not trying anymore. You're not holding on to something. You're not struggling to make it work. You don't even have to meditate anymore. You're permanently enlightened. This is possible. This is a real state. Thousands of people have achieved this state, so it can be done. Any normal human being, as far as we know, can do it with enough work. But it takes quite a bit of work. In my original video, I said it takes about 1,000 hours. That's kind of like a ballpark. 1,000 hours of work, maybe more, maybe less. So, generally speaking, a drug will never give you permanent enlightenment. I don't really know of any people who have become permanently enlightened off of drugs. The best a drug can do is give you a little brief couple of hours of enlightenment-like experience. So it's not really helpful. Meditation is more helpful. Meditation is very good. I recommend you start doing a lot of meditation. And if you're starting to experience more and more enlightenment-like experiences with meditation, that's great, but don't just stop because you think you've made it. You haven't made it yet. So keep meditating until you get the real permanent deal. And don't assume that just because you've had a little experience with drugs or a little experience with meditation that you know what enlightenment is going to be like. Because I'm guessing it'll probably turn out very different than you expect in the end. The next question. Leo, what about my friends and family after enlightenment? What's going to happen to them? So the reason people ask this question is because friends and family are very important for many people. A top value for many people is family. And of course, people worry about, well, if I become enlightened, will I just abandon my family now? Will I abandon my friends? What's going to happen there? Am I not going to care about them anymore because I'm so detached from everything? And the answer is that, again, it all depends. A lot of people have very dysfunctional families and friends. So if you're hanging around, in a gang, got a bunch of horrible friends, and then you become enlightened, yeah, you'll probably abandon those friends because they weren't very healthy. And now you guys don't have much in common. But there's nothing, again, inherently wrong with family or with friends. So if you've got a good family and your family brings you authentic joy, and if you've got good friends and they bring you authentic joy, then you'll probably keep them. And in fact, your relationships with them will improve. Because a lot of people have dysfunctional family and friends, not because those people are dysfunctional, but it's more because you have buttons that those people push. And it's because your ego is involved in these relationships. When you take the ego out of the relationships, even if you have, a dysfunctional family member or one dysfunctional friend, it's not going to bother you anymore. You're going to be able to have compassion for them and be kind to them. You're not going to need to be mean to them. Also, if you're in some sort of relationship with someone, one of the things enlightenment will do is it'll make you independent of that relationship. So if the relationship serves you, you'll stay in the relationship. If the relationship becomes toxic or it stops serving you, you're not going to have any hesitation walking away from that relationship. Now, some needy people will latch onto this point and say, well, Leo, this makes me some cold-hearted monster. I don't want to become this way. See, actually, right now, the way that you're living is very unhealthy if you live this way. This is what neediness does. It produces a toxic attachment. So the toxic attachments that you might have now, those will be cut. But that's something that you want. That's a really good thing. It's not a bad thing. In general, I think that your friends and your relationship will be significantly amplified and improved with enlightenment. Next question. Leo, what about love? How does love play into all this? Love is a really deep concept, which I'll want to shoot a whole video on at some point when I'm ready to talk about it. But the thing I'll say about love here is that what you call love right now is not true love. you don't really have an experience of true love. What you have is you have egoic love. And a lot of people hate to hear it put this way, but this is true. It's another bitter pill to swallow. What you call love now, whether it's even in your most sacred relationship or even with a relationship that you consider just like a blood bond, like with your family, with your children, with your mother or father, this is still egoic love. You love those people, but you only really love them on your terms. And so what this usually means is that you try to change those people, you try to manipulate those people in subtle ways to make sure that you're getting the love that you want. It's a selfish love. Yes, you love them, but really the reason you love them is because it serves you in some sneaky, underhanded way that you don't like to admit. If you want real, true love, what you have to do is you have to break down the ego. Without the ego, you can love everything as much as you right now love yourself. Imagine how kind you would be to your family, your friends, and your intimate partner, and even people in general, if you honestly believed that this body here is not separate from that body over there, that they're literally one and the same thing, that they're all one thing. This is the true meaning of the golden rule, right? You know, the golden rule says, do unto others as you would do unto yourself. Well, you can't do that when you actually believe that you are here and everyone else is separate and out there. You can only truly live the golden rule when you actually believe that I'm here and I'm there and I'm there and I'm everywhere, so I treat everything as though it's me. And so I'm kind and compassionate and loving towards everything. So that's what real love is. Almost no one knows this practically because of their unenlightened state. So if you really care about true love, well, you should definitely want to become enlightened. Next question. Leo, you're talking about all this stuff, and I've just been doing regular personal development. I've been following your regular videos, and now this is all very confusing for me, and this is creating a lot of doubts in me about my life and my goals and my ambitions, and maybe even my relationships, and maybe even in my business. A lot of doubts now. I used to be very confident, and I was, getting more and more confident as I was watching your videos, and now it seems like you've cut the legs out from under me. Well, yeah, in a sense, that's exactly what we're doing here, right? Because enlightenment is not about building up more of your ego, it's about cutting out the ego. And this is going to feel threatening, it's going to feel emotionally disturbing to you. It's not going to be pleasant. This is why so few people are enlightened, is because this is not a pleasant process. This is a scary process. One of the things that your mind wants at all times is certainty and clarity. Certainty and clarity. Your mind hates being confused and uncertain. It hates to doubt itself. But you need to get comfortable with uncertainty, because what enlightenment is not ultimate certainty. It's actually getting comfortable with ultimate uncertainty. It's not about clinging to some truth. It's actually about realizing that the truth is that there's nothing to cling to and that there is no truth. The truth of no truth. Again, very paradoxical and fascinating how this works. So if you're doubting yourself, good. I want you to be doubting yourself. Stop trying to be certain all the time. The problem with most people is that they're too certain, and that they're too afraid of getting confused once in a while, and that they're too afraid of questioning their own worldviews. This is good stuff. This is what an intelligent, open-minded, intellectually honest human being does, is purposefully put himself into situations where he doubts himself because he knows that this is healthy. This is building him up, not tearing him down. Next question. Leo, isn't it better to hold off on this enlightenment journey until I'm older? So like right now I'm in my 20s or in my 30s. Wouldn't it be better to just spend the first half of my life doing all this cool fun stuff, putting my life together, building a business, having sex and going to relationships and all this stuff, traveling the world. And then when I'm like 50 or 60 or 70, when I'm retired, then I can do this enlightenment stuff. And the answer is no, right? You're procrastinating. Your ego is procrastinating. Why is it not better to put it off? Well, because what do you want in your life? Do you want happiness or do you want suffering? That's the fundamental question. If you want happiness and peace, then you want enlightenment sooner, not later. Why would you put off a great thing? We've talked about all these cool benefits that you get. Why would you want to put that off? Right? The longer you put it off, basically, the more suffering you're going to have in your life. So it's like you're saying, okay, Leo, wouldn't it be better to spend the next 20 years suffering and then only when I retire, I'll finally be happy? That's basically what you're saying. The truth is that your life will be so much more rewarding and fulfilling and better if you become enlightened sooner rather than later. In fact, one of the things that many people report after becoming enlightened is that this is the most positive experience that's ever happened to them in their lives, and that they're sad that it didn't happen earlier. They wish that it happened earlier in their life. Some people become enlightened in their 40s and their 50s, but then they have very bad experiences in their 20s and 30s because they're just emotionally all over the place. There's monkey chatter going around, right? This goes back to the earlier question of, are you truly happy? And the answer is that you're not. So don't put off true happiness for another 10 years. Go get it now. The next objection, someone might say something like this: all right, Leo, I've heard enough of this nonsense. Fuck all this nonsense. I'm just going to go and have my normal life. I just want to live a normal life. And you know what? If you want to do that, go ahead and do that. I'm not here to really force you to do anything that you don't want to do. And in fact, no one can force you to become enlightened. You're going to have to work really, really, really hard at it. 1 or 2 of my videos isn't going to do it. So if you really feel that way, go off and do it. But realize that the reality of what you're saying there is that you're closing your mind down. You don't want to do a self-honest inquiry. You're being lazy. You don't want to really put the work and effort into this process. Realize also that you're committing yourself to a life of suffering, mental and emotional suffering. Realize also that your life is going to end in a very bitter way. No matter how successful you are in the end, you're going to die, and you're going to have diseases, you're going to have bad relationships. All this stuff is going to happen. It's going to disturb you a lot. It's going to disturb you a lot. Right? So this thing that you call a normal life, well, normal is a very bad standard. The normal life is really a crazy, dysfunctional life. Even what you call a normal, successful life, that's still a very dysfunctional, neurotic, miserable life. So if you're not buying into all this stuff and you think it's silly and you think it's nonsense, you think it's religion and mysticism and whatever, and you think it's all hippie bullshit, it can seem that way on the surface when you first start, right? What you're really saying when you say this is that you're at the lower stages of your development and that you haven't gone to the higher stages yet. So maybe you do need to go off and just, do some stupid stuff in your life, waste 10, 20 years, and get yourself to the point where it's like finally you say, oh, okay, this is not working. Let me now swing my pendulum towards the spiritual end. And that might be a necessary step for you, right? So then, go do that if you need to. But hopefully you can have the wisdom to short circuit all that nonsense, save yourself a couple of decades, and get to a good life, not a normal life, but a good life, much sooner than you think is possible. Next question. But Leo, aren't you yourself not enlightened? And if you're not, how can you be talking about all this enlightenment stuff? Aren't you being a hypocrite? How do you actually know? What if you're wrong on this? The answer is that I'm not enlightened right now. But I've been on this journey now for about 2 years, really heavy for 1 year. And the reason that I feel like I can talk about this stuff, I don't feel fully qualified to like be your guru and tell you all the stuff about enlightenment because I still have a lot to learn, right? And for myself, I'm very humble with myself about what I think I know about enlightenment. Even though it might sound like I'm up here and I'm being very confident and I'm telling you all this stuff as though it's, set in stone. In fact, it's not set in stone. There's stuff that I get wrong. There's mistakes I can make. There's revisions that I'm always making in my mind. There's a lot that I'm learning. And this is going to continue even after enlightenment because enlightenment is a long journey. Even after enlightenment, there's still more to discover about consciousness. But the reason that I feel like I have some valuable information to give you here is because I've gone through the initial early stages, the fight, the resistance to this idea of enlightenment. Like I said, the journey is like this progression, right? This expansion of consciousness, this growing, this development. Now, I'm still early enough in the process that I'm no master. And there are many people out there that are, much more enlightened than I am and know this stuff much better. But I think one of the benefits that I can give to you is that actually I'm like a normal person that you can identify with, right? I'm not some hippie. I'm not some spiritual guru. I'm not some Indian yogi who, meditates in the woods for 10 hours a day. I'm not a Buddhist monk. I'm not the Dalai Lama. I'm not some religious leader. And I'm not some Zen master. And in a sense, you might say, well, those people are, more knowledgeable about this stuff. Yes, but also, those people bring their own perspective to it. And that perspective is probably very incongruent with the way that you presently live your life. You probably live a much more normal kind of social existence, the kind of existence that I live. And you probably resonate with the fact that someone is going through this journey. And the fact is that I am like 3 steps ahead of you, right? So I can point you to the traps that are going to be there. So I know, for example, a lot of these questions. So a lot of these questions in the FAQ that I'm answering, these are all questions that I had to struggle through. So when you're struggling through them, I had to struggle through them too. It's not like this was all easy for me and I just knew it all. Every one of these questions I struggled through. And some of these I still struggle with. So it's not like I'm here just making this stuff up. What's really fascinating about personal development is that when you start growing and going up in this chain of this staircase ladder that you're going up, and you're ascending to higher levels, and you're transcending and releasing old levels, is that once you move to the next level, all the other levels suddenly make so much sense. And it's so clear to you when you look backwards on your life and the lives of people around you who haven't advanced yet, why they're stuck. And so for me, that's clear with a lot of you who are just kind of starting this journey. Now, if you're very advanced, then maybe you want to go to some very advanced teacher. But if you're starting off and also you like a kind of a very no-nonsense, non-mystical, non-religious, somewhat of a logical and scientific approach to enlightenment, that can be rare to find in teachers. So that's personally kind of like my own bias and my own perspective that I'm bringing to it. So that might resonate with you more than it does, than other teachers might resonate with you. And as for this objection that I might be wrong about this whole thing, well, an intelligent person has to always leave open the possibility that he might be wrong about anything he says or anything he believes or anything he advocates, gives advice to other people on. So I always leave the possibilities open that I could be wrong in any of my videos. I don't like come out there and say it every time, but I always leave that possibility open in my mind, and I'm always revising my worldview, right? I'm always growing. There's videos that I've shot 6 months ago, a year ago, that now in my mind, like I've advanced so much further that really in my mind, I need to go reshoot those videos. One of the problems I have with YouTube is that they don't allow me to actually replace old videos. I have to like re-upload a whole new video. And then, that creates duplicate videos. So there's like a kind of a problem there. But if I could, I would actually go back and reshoot many of my older videos so that they're more accurate, more true than they were 6 months ago, even 1 month ago, right? So I'm growing all the time. And the same is true with the Enlightenment videos. So if you really want to kind of like stay on the cutting edge, then keep watching the newer videos because they're becoming more and more accurate, not perfectly accurate. And yes, I could be technically wrong about this enlightenment, as I could be with any advice that I give you whenever I'm talking about a non-enlightenment topic. And you know what? The same is true for anyone that you listen to. No matter who you listen to, whether it's a scientist, a religious person, the Dalai Lama, or the Buddha himself, or whatever, they could always be wrong. So that's just a fact of life and a fact of communication. So we have to deal with that, right? I don't want you to just like believe me on blind faith here. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to use your own intelligence, your own rational faculties, to think about all this stuff very critically, but also very self-honestly, not just with monkey chatter and ego defenses, and to start to piece it together yourself and actually go out and prove it to yourself. This is not a belief system here. This is not a philosophy. This is something that you go out and you actually achieve. You achieve it, and that's how you know that it's real. So if I do end up being wrong about this, I'll be sure to tell you. That's the best promise that I can make you on this point. All right, so that's all the questions for now. I'm going to have another part to this series with more FAQ questions coming up in the future, so stay tuned for that. But for now, that's it. All right, I'm signing off. Go ahead, post me your comments down below. Click the like button on this video, please. Share the video with a friend. And come sign up right here to the Actualized.org newsletter. It's a free newsletter. I release new videos on enlightenment and self-actualization topics every single week. There's some cool free exclusive goodies for signing up, and I have more exclusive content that I'm going to be rolling out to some of my subscribers for my newsletter. So go ahead and check that out if you really want to stay on track with your personal development.